Good evening, and welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families.
And I'm Merrill Hutchinson, President of Rock Solid Families. And we are excited to have you join us for the next 30 minutes as we talk about relationships. A huge shout out to our sponsors. Thank you to Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. We are so thankful for these businesses who have made this show possible. So whether you are listening live or online, Rock Solid Radio, helping to strengthen our community one family at a time on your hometown radio, Eagle Country 99.3. Good evening, Eagle Country. Hey, this is Merrill Hutchinson for Rock Solid Radio, and I'm here with my lovely wife, Miss Linda. How are you, Miss Linda?
Hi, honey. It's been a while.
Yes, it has. Hey, and as we are progressing through summer here, I just have to share, I'm depressed.
Why are you depressed?
I am depressed. Well, I saw something the other day on TV that just is the thing that every year is my trigger for depression. You know what a mnemonic device is, right?
No.
Like, something that triggers your memory,
Okay.
like a smell or,
yeah.
And so I'm watching some TV show the other day, and up on the TV screen flashes back to school sale.
And that triggered depression?
Yes, severe depression. Are you serious? You must not work in a school.
Not for a long time.
Yeah,
So for me, I remember...
Yeah, you see joy, don't you?
Oh, my goodness. I still remember the Target commercial where the woman is pushing the cart and she's singing, "It's the most wonderful time of the year."
Oh, yeah.
That's me now.
Yeah. Well, for I think of the kids... there's a few kids out there that see back to school as an exciting and fun time, but there's a whole lot of kids out there that go, "Oh no,
Yeah.
do we have to?"
So if you have a school-age child in the room and they're listening to this with you, you might have them go in the other room because they're probably not going to like what we're going to talk about tonight. But if you're a parent like me of a school-age child, you are excited, I'm sure, about back to school. Some of them, there's some very sick parents out there who really enjoy the summer with their kids, and I'm just kidding. I envy them that they have such contentment with them home. But I'm excited about school starting.
Well, and I've always enjoyed the summer because it is a change in routine, opportunity to do different things. Obviously, being outside and in the warmth and everything is always great too. But back to school is what we're going to talk about today, and getting back to school. And the reality of it is even for the kids who love school, there is a new anxiety that sits back in to their world. And mostly it's a temporary kind of anxiety just because it's the unknown that sits in front of them. They don't know the new teacher yet. They don't know what kids are going to be around. They're not quite sure if they're going to be able to get to their classes and all of these new dynamics that are going to come into their world. So back to school does create anxiety. And so we're going to go through a little bit of that today. We're going to have some fun, but we're also going to have some serious conversation about, well, what about the kid who has a little bit more anxiety than just a little temporary couple-day kind of thing?
Sure. And if you're listening out there in Eagle Country and you're not familiar with our background, Merrill just retired out of the public school system, the Summon Dearborn school system, after 32 years, hon, and your last 20 were in the elementary school as an elementary school counselor. So you dealt with this all the time. My background is junior high, teaching years ago, and then ministry. But I do remember those early days for students, and how, especially as a teenager, an awkward teenager going through puberty, it was a struggle too. So we're going to talk about that tonight, and really dig into how we can help our kids have a successful school year.
Yeah.
But before we start,
we need to take some time to thank our sponsors. We want to thank Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. We thank them for their support. They're offering to sponsor Rock Solid Radio, which gives us the opportunity to teach and to hopefully get a useful message out there to our audience. So we want to thank these guys for doing this.
Yeah.
Also, while we say this, we want to just thank all of our donors who have allowed us to continue to do what we're doing at Rock Solid Families. we exist primarily by donations, and we do have people pay for like fitness classes and things like that, but that's really actually kind of a not a primary means of sustaining what we're doing. So we appreciate the support. Anything that we can do that you would be willing to do to help us more financially and prayerfully, we would greatly appreciate.
And on that note, Hun, we have a page on our website, rocksolidfamilies.org, that really lists some of our Rock Solid partners. And some of them want to remain anonymous, but some of them are willing to say, hey, we're putting our name out there as supporting healthy and strong families. And so we're so thankful for them. So you can actually see a list of some of our donors that are willing to come forward and be recognized, and we just want to thank them. We also have, Hun, an memoriam page, where if you have lost a loved one or you want to remember and honor the name of a loved one, you can donate in their name, and we would put their name and your name on at that page. So we would love to have your support, and we would love to recognize and pray for you and your family, especially in a time of grief.
Yeah. Not to obviously the show is going to be about going back to school, but to talk about so many of the things that we do at Rock Solid Families, that this is in some ways like a grassroots effort, and it's a grassroots effort at establishing the priority and the importance of family.
Yep.
And, I had an opportunity to talk with Aaron Nickengard the other day, who was the assistant deputy attorney for the state of Indiana, and Aaron was a former prosecuting attorney at Dearborn County.
And a guest on your radio show, your podcast,
and,
Strong Dads.
We had lots of conversation about the incarceration rate. He deals with it at the state level, and obviously we get to see it on the news every evening and stuff. And, we talk about the incarceration rate, and there's nobody that would say it's not too high. It is too high. And people want to, change that, drop that rate down. And his conversation is really right in line with what you and I believe. Yeah, we do need to drop it down, but we don't do that by dropping the bar on crime.
Sure.
We do that by
creating more laws.
Yeah, we do that by building stronger families and having a family connection that keeps kids strong and healthy, and positive contributors to not just their family but our community. So we just continue to want to plug away with what we're doing here at Rock Solid Families and appreciate the support that you give us. Yeah. So with that being said, what are some things that we got coming up?
Yeah, we're going to have to run through these quickly, otherwise we're not going to get to back to school. But
that means we don't have to go. I love it.
Strong Dads, hon. Talk about your Strong Dads class starting on August 10th.
August 10th, Strong Dads is starting back up. This is our Saturday morning classes. It'll go for 8 weeks. It goes from 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. And we do a 45-minute workout followed by a 45-minute Bible study that is really aimed at being dads and dads that God has called us to be. So great time. Looking forward to that. We have room still in that, so please contact me at hutch@rocksolidfamilies.org and let me know if you would like a spot reserved for you.
Yeah, and the podcast is going to be starting in a couple weeks,
so,
right? You've been taping them?
Yes, Kyle Crawford and I have been taping our podcast for Strong Dads, the podcast, not the workout. And we are going to be releasing that the first week of August. So we can't wait to get those out. We've been having a lot of fun doing them, so we'll get to let people start to hear them. Yeah.
So let's talk about our topic, hon. So why do we need to kind of talk about back to school? Because it's been happening for centuries. So why now isn't it an issue?
Wow, centuries. That's a long time to be going back to school.
Hey, I watched Little House on the Prairie. They had little one-room schoolhouses.
Well, here's the deal. Hun, you were a kid who really liked school.
I did.
And you couldn't wait for it to start. You were a social bug. You did well in your academics. And so everything about school kind of added to the overall quality of your life.
That's why I wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah. Many kids, in fact, in the general public school, over half the kids don't have that feeling to that degree. School is difficult. The academics can be challenging or difficult. The social interaction can be difficult. And so for just as many kids that may like school, there's at least that many that look at school as being a very challenging situation and a place to be. So with that being said, when we look at, hey, this is not just one or two kids that are going to struggle. We're looking at least half the school building is going to find some struggle.
And they're all coming to your office.
Yeah, and you, mom and dad, may very well be the parent of one of those kids. We'd like to talk a little bit today about how we can help both the parents and the kids, as well as teachers, jump into this school year and get the best start as possible. One of the things I've always said is, when a second or third grader or even earlier starts to realize that school is tough, and they start to grasp a little bit of time, like what the time is, and it dawns on them that they have their 12 years or so remaining, how overwhelming that is to them. And that's why, you have kids that all of a sudden get into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and they shut down. They shut down. They're just like, listen, I'm just doing my time.
Right.
And we're trying to not make school feel like a prison for kids.
Yeah, that's true.
So we don't want to just have to do our time.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we want to talk a little bit about how do we approach the start of the school year, and this is for parents and kids, and what we can do to help things out. So first thing, mom and dad, your kids are listening to your lead.
Yeah.
Okay? You are setting the stage. And you need to really have your finger on the pulse of whether your kids are excited or whether they're just kind of neutral or whether they're fearful.
See, honey, my excitement for school is a positive thing for them.
Well, I think what I kind of mean by that is I think that excitement is good. I think the diminishing of the kids' feelings is something we have to be aware of. For instance, when a kid's like, oh man, I don't want to go back to school, I don't like school, and a parent's like, oh, it's no big deal, you'll get over it, just suck it up. While we're always stressing here in Rock Solid Families that we need to make our kids tough and resilient, there's also an opportunity there to figure out, well, why is your kid saying that?
Sure. Yeah. What are they worried about?
Yeah. What are they really telling you? What's going on? And so, first off, we want to encourage parents, know your kid, and know if they're excited about school, then just keep running that ship.
Sure.
Okay? If they're not excited about school, then let's start talking a little bit to them. Like, okay, so what's exciting to you? What's not exciting? What has you worried? And start to tackle that with your kid.
Right. It could be something as simple as, I don't know what bus to take. They don't know there's numbers and that they stop at a certain spot and you'll get on. So sometimes working through the bus thing, or I don't know where I'll go for lunch. Well, the teacher's going to take you down to the lunchroom.
Yeah.
Or there's this kid in my class that I have every year and he's mean to me. So talking him through that and working through how you get along with somebody that's not very nice. So, yeah, for you to say that, Hun, is important because what you're saying is I acknowledge that you have these phobias or fears or anxieties. So let's unpack that and try to help them through that.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, most anxieties will be actually relieved within the first week.
Yeah.
Most kids will hit their stride within 2 or 3 days. They'll come home and say, I love school, or I'm okay with school, So most of these things take a very simple plan of just saying, okay, what is your worry? Like you said, the bus, the meeting the teacher the first time. Get a very simple plan. Help them kind of wrap their head around that. And chances are things are going to go very well, okay?
Yeah.
The other thing that's important when you start the school year is to talk to your kid about what you expect of them within the school year.
Yeah.
Okay?
Before you go into expectations, Hon, I want to go back to that attitude again. Yes, I'm excited about the kids going back to school.
Yeah, you're a little bit like crazy over the top. That's enough of that.
Yeah, they don't like me when I do that. But to not kind of talk it down as well. Like, oh, I hated school too, or, it stinks. Like to to not put it down because you're not helping them out,
Yeah.
or you're not helping the teacher any, if
that's what I
you
said.
are
They'll-
talking it
yeah.
bad.
Yeah, they'll follow your lead. And
Yeah.
if your lead is, I hated school too, you're on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And they're going, oh, wow, I've got 8 years or 10 years
So it's
or
okay
12
that
years.
I hate school and hate the teacher because my dad did too.
Yeah. So, let's talk positively about the place that our kids are all going to go. Let's try to make the best of this situation, especially for the kid who's struggling. State your expectations on both their behavior and their academics. If your kid struggles academically, and for you to drop the bar down completely of just like, listen, you just go and do your time or
Right.
whatever, that's not really helping your kid learn other life-sustaining goals like setting goals,
Right.
and working and achieving and knowing that sometimes things are difficult and you got to work to get through them. So set up for your kids. This is what we expect of you academically. This is what we expect of you behaviorally.
Right.
These are things that your kid actually feels reassured by when they don't quite have a goal in mind or they don't think you care, they won't care.
Right. Whether it be pulling a card, pulling a card is about self-control, and pulling a card for getting out of line versus pulling a card for forgetting a book, So kind of decide what is going to be the mountains that you're going to die on, the things that are important. For our kids, we're not expecting all A's, but we are expecting that you don't get anything lower than a C. Like that for you is a reasonable expectation.
Right, and that really depends on who your kid is and what.
Right.
We always said, you've proved to us already what you're capable of.
Right.
Once you show us what you're capable of, then we're going to start to set the benchmark, the standard from that. And so for our kids currently, they are capable every bit of C's or higher.
Yeah.
It is interesting with behavior. When we started with with our kiddos that we've adopted, our goal was to get through a day without pulling a behavior card, right? I mean, remember that. That was because before then, they were pulling multiple behavior cards every day.
Yep.
And so we had to start where they were and start to build that. And now, I mean, honestly and proudly to say, now we're looking at, multiple weeks and months.
Right.
And so there's an expectation that is set.
Right. We definitely feel like this is something important to talk with your kids about, to set goals. AR, if you live in Indiana, AR is one of those cuss words a lot of kids don't like to talk about because they hate it. But, they work with the teacher to find an expectation that's reasonable for them, a reading level, a number of points. And so you work with the teacher on that and you say, AR is something that you're going to reach. This is your goal. Your teacher set it for you. And if you don't, A, B, and C are going to happen. So, even AR is something that you can talk about the beginning of the 9 weeks. This is the expectation.
Yeah. So, so another thing we want to talk about is how this is a great time of year to start talking to your kid about how they interact with the most important person that they're going to deal with every day in this new school year, their teacher.
The teacher, makes or breaks the year.
Yeah, and so we have so many kids that don't really have the greatest of social skills, and a lot of that is due to the screen time and the phones and so on. And Mom and Dad, we want to emphasize to you right now that teach your kids social skills, and especially how to interact with the teacher right off the get-go. Stress with your kids the importance of that first day of school for your kid, even as shy or quiet or reserved as they may be, that they would come up and just say, good morning, Mrs. Smith, or whoever the teacher is, or hi, or just breaking the ice and starting to develop a little rapport with that teacher.
Right.
That's something that I encourage students in our building and as well as our own personal kids.
Right.
Every day when they walk in that school building,
Right.
they need to look at their teacher and say, "Good morning. How are you this morning?"
Right.
Or "How was your evening last night?" Because it starts just a little back and forth that the teacher then responds. If I ask you, Linda, how are you doing today? You're going to answer, and then what are you going to say?
How are you?
You're going to respond back, and you start to tap into my world. And so this is a great way for your kid to feel connected and get connected. And you know, that pays huge dividends down the road when the school year gets tough.
You know, and as a junior high teacher, this is even true for junior high and high school. You know, just to make yourself and your face known, you know, if you're saying hello to your teacher every day, they're going to figure out what your name is, and they're going to remember your name because you are investing in them. And so it just creates relationship and accountability and encouragement because that teacher is going to invest in that child. So yeah, that is a huge, whether it be your coach, whether it be the secretaries, whether it be, you know, your teachers, the cafeteria workers.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So what do you want the parents to walk away with, hon? We're running out of time. So.
Yeah, no. So you know, the big thing is know who your kid is. If your kid's a talker and over the top with being social, you know, we don't treat that kid the same way that we do the reserved or anxious or shy kid. And so we know who our kid is. We encourage them to manage who they are within this new setting.
Right.
And like I said, most anxieties drift away within that first week. Okay, but let's move past that.
Okay.
All right, because over 50% of the kids are going to be pretty nervous that first week of school.
Yep.
But there's going to be about 5 to 10% of the kids, the anxiety's not going away.
Yeah.
All right?
And the parents are getting more anxious because they're crying and they're screaming.
Here we are. This is so now that we start school so early, and especially around here, but in Indiana where I came from, so Labor Day weekend became the breaking point. So kids have been in school now for 3 to even 4 weeks, and they finally get this long weekend break.
And they think, I don't have to go back.
And that Monday, Labor Day, they are...
Tuesday, because they're not in school on Monday.
No, but that Monday night, they are coming unglued.
Oh, man.
Because it's starting to dawn on them, I hate school. Mom, you lied to me. You said school was going to be fun. It was going to be exciting, and they make me work there. I have to, you know. And so this is when we start to actually see that true anxiety is hanging on. And so I'll have more kids that I have to help into school on Tuesday after Labor Day than I did the very first day of school.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they kind of muscle up. Yeah, they muscle up for the first day of school, but now we're in 3 or 4 weeks, and now it's tougher. So, you know, what do we do for this super anxious kid and the kid who's just, you know, anxiety's real? And it creates a paralyzation of just like the mind and the body just doesn't seem to function right.
And it manifests itself in bad bellies, headaches, sleeplessness.
Yeah. And so how do we start to walk through there? So I think it's worth some of our time of how we deal with these things.
Yeah.
First
so if you're
off,
out there listening in Eagle Country, if you have one of these really anxious kids, or maybe you were one of those anxious kids,
or maybe you're that parent that gets anxious when your kid's leaving.
Oh, there's a lot of moms out there who are listening that
are not like you.
Well, that are tearing up. Yeah, they're crying. I've had one that followed the bus. Like the kids got picked up on the bus, and she got in her car and she drove all the way to school because their kid was crying, and she was afraid it was going to be too much for them. And she literally was in the parking lot going, "Do I go in? Do I not go in? Do I go in?"
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, so these are good things, but first off, so how do we deal with the kid who's really truly anxious and it's not seeming to go away? First off, the symptoms are real. Nausea, headaches, body aches, these are real. So to look at them and say, oh, your head doesn't hurt or your belly doesn't hurt, that's just not true, okay? Anybody who knows anything at all about anxiety, the headache is real, the nausea is real. If you don't believe the nausea is real, hang around long enough and they'll puke right at your feet, okay?
Nurse Sue will tell you she gave away a lot of peppermints the first couple weeks because of bad bellies and, you know, uneasiness.
Yeah. So what do we do with these kids? Well, let's talk a little bit about what the anxiety does. So in the school setting, we talk about something called executive functioning. And executive functioning is just this term that really is explaining how our brain wraps itself around planning and looking to accomplish something. So like when I wake up in the morning and I think, okay, well, what do I have to do today? And you sort of make this little checklist in your head and you start to wrap yourself around, how am I going to do what I need to do? So a lot of us are very good at executive functioning skills. We're planners. We can lay things out and we can move forward. Some of us struggle. So our kids with ADHD oftentimes have a very difficult time with executive functioning or planning, and they become overwhelmed.
Yep.
So this is key right here, Mom and Dad. They become overwhelmed, and so anxiety, one of the first things that it hits is your ability to perform executive functioning tasks. You become overwhelmed, and just to kind of put it in a simple analogy, you throw your hands up in the air and you go, I don't know where to begin.
Right, or they melt down on the floor.
Yeah, and so that's where the anxiety attacks and the panic and all of that comes from, okay? So
what do you do about it?
So that's a great question. So what we do is we first acknowledge that it's real, and then we have to start to break things down for the kids. We have to teach them a little bit of the task building, the to-do list. And so we start to break things down with, okay, wait, you're getting ready to go to school. Let's start walking through what this is actually going to look like. And if we can identify the more exact trouble areas, like I just don't want to go to the cafeteria to eat lunch, all those people in there, okay?
Let's pack your lunch.
Let's go through and get a plan just for that. But we start to break their day down into the very simple steps. We're not trying to live through the day. We're trying to teach them to literally live through the moment. And so,
like, I don't know where I'm going. So you go on book days and you take a tour and look where they're going.
And we're going to break this thing down. And so these are the things that are so important. So start to build the plan that can actually break down into small steps so that your child can start to see success. Like you said, hon, that's great. The book days are coming up. If you have an anxious child, take that child to book days with you. Let them roam the building within the rules of whatever the school's allowing. If there's other staff in the building, let them talk to the other staff or introduce them. The secretary, the nurse, the principal, the counselor, if they're teachers in the building. Those are great times.
Familiar faces.
And the more that they see those people, the more it eases them through that, especially that first couple weeks.
So, hon, what if the anxiety isn't going away and they're literally prying the fingers off the child in the car to get him in the door? What do you do if it's happening day after day, week after week?
Yeah. Well, the nature of parents oftentimes is to say, I'll walk you into school. I'm always here with you. I'll sit with you in class. And here's the reality of it, Mom and Dad. You are not going to pacify them by hanging around, especially when that's a lie.
It actually makes it worse.
Yes, it makes it worse. You're not going to be able to stay at class all day. You're not going to be able to be there. So the reality of it is you have to teach kind of a hard break. And so it literally would get to the point where, at our school we'd say, you can only come to this level of the hallway or into this door. After that, you have to let go of your kid's hand and they have to walk on their own. If we have an anxious kid, let's set it up in advance. I'd have a parent call me and I would meet them at the door and I would take the child's hand or we'd get the teacher to help with that and then we would walk them in. So do not think that you will say, well, I'll just hang out for a while and you'll pacify them. You're just going to build the anxiety because at some point you've got to pull away.
And if you're saving them in all those cases, they're always going to think if I cry long enough or I melt down in the hallway, mom or dad are going to come back and get me.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, we work through these things, involve your counselor, involve their teacher. If you need help, the teachers and counselors are involved with this stuff all the time. Your child's not the first one to be anxious about school. If it did get to a point where, everyone's kind of throwing their hands up, we're not having success, then maybe we do talk to professionals about it. We talk to doctors and think about, wait, is this something that is leaking into a lot of other areas of our life?
Call us at Rock Solid Families. We'd love to come alongside you. And Merrill is awesome about creating school plans for behavior and academics and social skills. So that's a great place to start.
All right, so we just want to close things down. We want to thank our sponsors. Thank you to Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, and our sponsors of Mansfield Insurance Agency and Erie Insurance. Thank you all for listening, and thank you for your support.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. For help or more information about what you've heard this evening, contact us at rocksolidfamilies.org or call us at 812-576-ROCK. That's 812-576-ROCK. Again, a huge thanks to our sponsors, Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. If you have questions you'd like answered on air, or you want to chime in on something you've heard this evening, go to our Facebook page, Rock Solid Families. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to tune in next Sunday evening at 7:30 for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, and for my husband Merrill and I, thanks for tuning in to your hometown radio, Eagle Country 99.3.